Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to give a field report from my Dungeons & Dragons Lego 2-hour FLGS physical table game, which started with Eberron, Rise of the Last War, right? And that is a really fascinating, that's an incredibly fascinating D&D canon hardback. I also want to explain. I also want to give an update. So I'm giving an update on my current game, right? So one of the things I'm doing is I'm just running the D&D. One of the things I'm doing is I'm starting with the D&D canon hardbacks, right? And the reason why is I used to have this really strong. Oh, I need to create my own custom world, right? And what I realized is when I shifted to use Dungeons & Dragons canon hardbacks, what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to focus more on the players, right? Because like the D&D canon hardback, Eberron Rise from the Last War, it's just such an incredibly robust, cool world, and I could put my players in there, and then there's this story that there's the houses and all the lightning rails, the Warforged, all the amazing things that exist within Eberron. I don't need to create all that. So I have this really powerful, really incredibly useful, divide, right? Where, I have this really incredibly useful, powerful start, and I could really focus on how do I tell this incredibly engaging story with the players? How do I engage with the players and get their ideas and bring them in, right? And when you're starting with these incredibly robust starts, which is what the D&D canon hardbacks are, it really helps, right? So what I want to talk about in this specific video is something that happened in the Thursday night game this week that truly astounded me and really, in my opinion, shows the incredible power of Dungeons & Dragons and the real power of player choice and not railroading, right? So let's get it. So basically, this entire game starts with my Titanium player. My Titanium player says, hey, reaches out on Facebook and says, hey, Scott, how you doing, right? And I'm like, I'm doing okay. You want to play some Dungeons & Dragons? The player's like, bet, I'm down. Let's play. And so at this point, I wanted to run D&D. I wanted to run 1 hour Lego D&D. That's my jam right now, right? But I realized I'm going to be going to this FLGS, and my friend's going to go to this FLGS, and he's going to come out of his house, right? And, he's going to make a trip, right? And then he's going to leave after an hour, right? So I didn't want to run 2-hour Dungeons & Dragons, right? I wanted to keep it super tight and, and compress and compress storytelling even farther, right? But one of the things I'm learning, and, I lost my table last year, and is, you don't get everything you want. This is a compromise, and you need to change to make sure that you are being polite and courteous and tolerant and really thanking every player at the table for every minute they're spending with you, right? As a dungeon master, you want to craft these narratives, but you also, you can't take their time for granted. People have a million things to do now. And so that's why I'm running 2-hour Dungeons & Dragons and not 1-hour Dungeons & Dragons, right? Because I would much rather be running one. But I know that the players would like, more time at the table. So I'm being flexible, right? So he said, so I come back to him and I said, hey, I can run anything in 5th edition. I have I either already have, I said, what D&D canon hardback are you most interested in? And he comes back, Eberron, right? And I'm like, bet, right? And I did not expect to be running Eberron, right? But here I am running Eberron, and so I pull it right off the shelf. I don't have to buy it, right? And then I dive right in, right? And that's the other thing is, my Titanium player, he chose which D&D canon hardback I would dive into. I got 40 on the shelf, right? So it's not, I can choose for myself, right? But but the serendipity of him choosing that was powerful, right? So we jump in, right? Then I'm using this revelation model, right? Where you don't get, you don't start with everything, right? You don't just say, I actually think, we're supposed to be Gary now, right? Gary really transformed the tabletop role-playing game. Gary transformed the tabletop experience, right? There's nothing like it in board gaming. There's nothing like it in wargaming. There's nothing like Dungeons & Dragons, right? And so we need to be changing Dungeons & Dragons now in really fundamental ways. You embracing page 4 of the Dungeon Master Guide. The rules aren't in charge. You're in charge, right? So I'm doing this through this revelation thing. So you start with your class and you have nothing else. You don't have a name, you don't have a species, you don't have a background, right? All these, you don't have a subclass. All these are revelation. You don't have a name, right? All these are revelations. And when you say them, right? Like in my opinion, the perfect player would say, would play their class for an entire session, then reveal their species, then reveal their background, then reveal their subclass, then reveal their name, right? And so you wouldn't even say your character's name for like 7 sessions, right? Like, right now, but we're walking through this. Some players are like, oh, that, I'm just going to put everything down, right? I can't handle that, and this is the thing that I'm trying to do, right? Is meet everybody where they're at, right? I want you to play in this particular way, but if you come and you play the old way, I'm not going to castigate you for it. I'm going to try not to, I'm going to try to embrace you being at the table, right? Like, and that's the point, right? So we get into this, and so, story, right? Last night, the characters end up in Eberron. House Deniath characters are all in Sharn, in the higher levels of Sharn. And House Deniath is going to war with House Orion. And the entire city of Sharn is taking every lightning rail they can out of the city, every elemental galleon they can out of the city, every floating skiff they can out of the city. Literally people just taking baskets to the ground, right, and walking away from the city. Because House Deniath has sworn to kill every noble person in House Orion, and there's going to be a massive war, right? We just got out of the last wars, and House Deniath is going to kill everybody in House Orion. And why are they going to kill them? Because of a memory crystal that one player character, my Magnesium player, Ragnar the dwarf rogue, who's also from House Kundarak, right? He has experienced this memory crystal, and it has a secret on it that will absolutely destroy Deniath. It'll make it the laughing stock of all the houses, and it will literally cease to exist to be a house within 3 months, right? Because of this secret that lies between Deniath and Orion, right? So Deniath brings an adult red dragon to the high circles of Sharn, right? And they're in a courthouse. They're in a courtyard, an open paved courtyard at House Orion, and House Deniath's High Lord is there, and the High Lord of House Orion is there, right? So this red dragon comes down, and House Deniath's leader is like, hey, you guys are all going to bow down, or this red dragon is going to fill this entire space with flame. He's going to dragon breath, and everybody's going to die, right? And so I was shocked. Some of the players two of the players actually bowed, right? Third player cast on the dragon, right? Which triggered the dragon to do its lightning breath. By the way, I premiered my first Lego dragon on the table. It was incredible, right? I was so happy to do it. It was very, very fun. All right, so although that's not what I'm going for, it just happened. It's a spark. It's not my fault that fun happens at my table every now and then. I try to stop that. Right? Okay. All right. So basically, it was incredible, right? So this dragon breathes its dragon breath, right? Literally melts the pavement, and literally the dragon has created a situation where now the player characters, all these House Deniath forces, all these House Orion forces, Shadow Warforged, horses are all hurtling floor after floor after floor as they break, and just like literally walls shattering and like glass and everything. And one of the floors that gets smashed is a wizard's lab. And in that wizard's lab is an open, active portal which begins to hurtle through space, right? And all the characters are literally in an anime, like hands out, holding hands together, right, circle as they fall, right, from floor to floor to floor, hoping they don't smash into, a brick wall, into a brick wall 200 feet down, right, or get smashed by a wall that's falling, circling, right? And this portal now breaks off from the floor and begins hurtling, turning and turning and hurtling and hurtling and hurtling through air, right? And the characters are falling toward it. And I was like, and I said, careful now, This is a game of high consequence. I literally warned them beforehand, right? And I said, you guys are falling, right? You're in battle with House Denioth. You're in battle with, you're in battle against House Denioth, allied to House Orien. As you fall, right, toward your opponent, the High Master of, the High Lord of House Denioth, toward his ensorcelled, controlled red dragon, right? You see this portal, and it's hurtling toward you, and it's spinning, open, active portal. And when you look in it, you see a sky that you've never seen. You see a muddy riverbank, and you see a black woman, 30 years old, holding up a silver fish. Now they don't know. This is literally a piece of art from Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, right? They're looking at Raven Uthvagler from Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen through this spinning portal. And I was like, this is a realm beyond Eberron, right? So you are hurtling there. You all have the ability right now to go through the portal because you're spinning down. You have Featherfall on. You have the ability to do it. And they don't know it's Krynn. They don't know it's Dragonlance. They just know there's a black woman holding up a large silver fish, and you can find that drawing in Dragonlance Shadow of the Queen. And they don't know it. They don't know the book well enough. None of them knew what it was, right? And I was like, do you hurtle past the portal and engage Lord Denioth, High Lord Denioth, the High Lord of Denioth, House Denioth, or do you, and his ensorcelled adult red dragon who he's using to try to kill you all, or do you go through this portal, right? And they went through the portal, and guess what? That choice put them literally in Chapter 1, start of the Dragonlance Shadow of Dragon Queen. And what's wild is, and what I love about Dungeons & Dragons is, I didn't know. I didn't know if at the end of this night, I would be spending another 10 sessions in Eberron and completing a campaign arc in Eberron, right? Or if I would be running Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen for these players, right? Which is, I know Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. I have over 40, I have a playlist and you could see it in the list below, in my description. I have a playlist of over 40 videos about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. So I'm ready to take them through this, right? But what's astounding is, I literally didn't know at the start what would happen. And that's what I love about Dungeons & Dragons, and that's what's really special about Dungeons & Dragons is we've reached this incredible point, right? We've never been here as a human species where there are special people, there's a bunch of sad sack, script writers, whining over more money right now. But the real storytellers of this world are dungeon masters who are creating a new way to create stories that are incredible, that are hyper-personal, right? And where the viewer shapes the story literally second by second. And there's nothing like it in video games. There's nothing like it in written prose. There's nothing like it on the big or small screen. There's nothing like this. It is truly astounding and truly glorious. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium. And to my titanium player, thank you again. This has been an incredible ride, and it's thanks to you. And thank you to every single player who's in. I'm blown away by how powerful this campaign has been.